It's September 7th, 1914, and in Prague, the Babek family welcomes their first child, a girl named Ludmila, after her mother. The family is ordinary, one of hundreds in Prague under Austro-Hungarian rule. The father works as a clerk. The mother once dreamed of being a famous opera singer. That never came true, and she became a housewife. Now she sees a new chance and channels all her unfulfilled hopes into her daughter. And indeed, little Lída grows into a stunning young woman with undeniable talent, soon accepted into a drama conservatory. Her mother beams with pride, watching her daughter's career take off, already envisioning a brilliant future ahead. She'll be right, for the most part. But she cannot yet know just how fickle Lady Luck can be. And the Baarová family is destined to learn this lesson more painfully than they could ever imagine. It's now 1931. Ludmila is 17 and lands her first chance in film. But students are forbidden from acting in movies, so she must leave the conservatory before completing her second year. She begins calling herself Lída Baarová, after a family friend, the writer Jindřich Šimon Bár, and soon secures another, this time larger, role in the film called Career.
Koho je ten milý dárek? Je to od Vrchlického, že ano?
Ne, prosím, to je ode mě.
Děkuji vám.
Lída is a stunning young woman with a deep gaze that stirs longing in men. And in no time, she becomes a celebrity. More film roles follow almost immediately, and reviews, mostly positive, highlight not just her beauty, but also her voice and intonation, said to be well suited to the talking pictures, which were still a fairly new phenomenon. On screen, she shines alongside some of the biggest Czech stars of the era: Hugo Haas, Jindřich Plachta, Jaroslav Marvan, and Vlasta Borian. But the real breakthrough comes in 1934. She's 20, and it's been less than 3 years since her debut, yet she already has over a dozen films to her name. Now, even producers from the renowned German studio UFA are starting to take notice. They invite her to Berlin to audition for an upcoming film, Barcarolle, and though she initially struggles with German, she manages to refine her accent to near perfection. She lands the coveted role, and what's more, the studio pairs her with Gustav Fröhlich, a heartthrob and superstar of German cinema. As it soon becomes clear, making films in Nazi Germany is a whole different league compared to Prague. Shoots take much longer, and the entire process is closely watched by the Reich Minister of Propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. Even Adolf Hitler himself visits the studio during filming. Yet the 1935 premiere of Barcarolle is a success, and UFA extends the Czech actress's contract for another 3 years, with permission to shoot in Prague at least twice a year.
Es ist bloß ein bisschen Müdigkeit, weißt du. Und ein Gefühl der Dankbarkeit.
She enters the most successful period of her life, both professionally and personally. She gets engaged to her fellow actor Fröhlich, and together they move near Berlin to Schwanenwerder Island on Lake Wannsee. Soon she discovers they're expecting a child. But the ectopic pregnancy ends in miscarriage, and as their relationship begins to fade, another man enters the story: Hitler's right-hand man, Joseph Goebbels. He hasn't been able to stop thinking about her since the day they met on set. Now they even live in the same neighborhood, as Goebbels, his wife Magda, and their children also reside by Lake Wannsee. The relationship between Baarová and Fröhlich comes to a definitive end in 1936, around the time the actress begins an intimate affair with Goebbels. Their nearly 2-year entanglement still raises questions today, chief among them, why a breathtaking woman like Baarová would choose a short, limping, fanatical Nazi. Though not yet a war criminal at the time, Goebbels' views were no mystery to her. He even invited her to Nuremberg for the NSDAP rally, where he fervently shouted slogans that would soon lead to the deadliest war in history and the murder of millions in concentration camps. With the same zeal, Goebbels courted Baarová. Lavish bouquets and invitations to elite gatherings eventually won her over, and she gave in. Some claimed it was all calculated on Lída's part. After all, Goebbels was the #1 man in the German film industry. In March 1937, UFA even became property of the Ministry of Propaganda, giving him absolute control over everything related to new film productions. But it seems more likely that Baarová truly fell in love with him. And so, she lives through this destructive affair, while her career continues to soar. She performs in Berlin's Deutsche Theater, shines in the German film The Bat, and back home in Czechoslovakia, she stars in her finest pre-war films, People on the Ice Floe and Virginity. At that time, a representative from the American film studio Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer visits Prague and offers her a contract in Hollywood, but Baarová turns it down. Perhaps she feared giving up her fame and starting from scratch, but her decision was likely influenced by pressure from the German Ministry of Propaganda. At a gathering of filmmakers in Berlin, Goebbels himself declared that the German film industry was no refuge for those who failed in Hollywood, and that actors who did would have nowhere to return to. So Baarová stays in Germany with her lover Goebbels. But the months to come will reveal just how terrible that decision was. In 1938, the affair between Baarová and Goebbels reaches its peak. Rumors about them begin to leak into foreign newspapers, and Lída now finds herself under Gestapo surveillance. In early August, she and Goebbels, along with his wife Magda, reportedly even discussed a three-way marriage. But life in a shared household cannot last long. Later that same month, Magda goes directly to Hitler to complain. Goebbels then pleads with the Führer to allow him a divorce, but Hitler does the exact opposite. He orders his minister to end the relationship with the actress. After all, the Goebbels marriage was seen as a model union in Germany, often held up as an example. The consequences of this decision are devastating for Lída. Baarová is almost immediately banned from acting and suffers a nervous breakdown. The final curtain on their 2-year affair comes with this seemingly happy family photo, staged by Hitler himself. Incidentally, everyone pictured here will die in 1945 in the Führer's underground bunker in besieged Berlin. Hitler takes his own life on April 30th. The Goebbels couple follows the next day, after poisoning all their children. In the winter of 1938, Baarová flees back to Prague. In 1939, she manages to shoot one more film, The Masked Lover, directed by Otakar Vávra, delivering a brilliant performance as a countess longing for a child.
Konečně se dočkáš toho, čeho si zasluhuješ.
Madame, co si ode mě přejete? Jako komedii chcete zase se mnou hrát?
Ne, jak se může za 4 léta muž změnit? Nepřísáhli jste miliony na tomhle místě věrnost.
Vy nemáte právo mě obvinovat, jestli jsem se změnil. Vy sama jste mě oklamala, prostě odhodila, zapomněla na mne.
Leone, nebuďte tak přísný. Teď jsem s vámi a všechno napravím.
Soon her acting ban reaches Czechoslovakia as well, which Hitler fully seized in March 1939. But Lída has a stroke of luck amid the misfortune. Vávra's film is screened in Italy, where she catches the eye of director Enrico Guazzoni. He offers her a role in his upcoming film, The Baker's Wife. And since she has no prospects left in Prague, she decides to accept, even though she doesn't speak a word of Italian. But she rises to the challenge brilliantly. Thanks to her undeniable gift for languages, she's able to master her Italian lines within just a few weeks.
Fornarina. La fornarina di Raffaello. Piaccio a lui e mi basta.
Over the next 3 years in Italy, she shoots a total of 6 films. But after the Allied landings, she's forced to return to Prague for good in February 1944. She fears what awaits her after the war, and she's not the only one. Her younger sister Zorka, a budding actress, also faces difficulties. In the theatre, people now see her as the sister of a collaborator. Out of concern for her family, Baarová first moves out of the family villa in Prague, and later, in April 1945, attempts to flee west. But in Germany, she's caught by the US military police, and since her relationship with Goebbels has landed her on a list of suspected war criminals, she ends up in prison. She isn't released from Munich until 6 months later, in September 1945. But the interrogations and detentions don't end there. They continue back in Prague. During this time, her entire family goes through a living hell. Her mother suffers a heart attack during interrogation and dies afterwards. The psychologically unstable Zorka is fired from the theatre, and she takes her own life by jumping from the window of their Prague villa. Her father loses a leg due to an untreated infection. As for Baarová, she spends another year and a half in the Prague prison before being released at Christmas 1946. The protocol states that there was no proof of collaboration with Nazism on Baarová's part. The rest of her life is hardly any brighter. In July 1947, she marries puppeteer Jan Kopecký, but as the communist coup approached, they decide to flee the country. The journey is quite dramatic. They spend all their savings, and Baarová even dyes her hair blonde to avoid being recognized. They first reach Slovakia, where a paid smuggler helps them get to Austria. From there, they plan to continue to Argentina, where it was relatively easy to obtain Italian visas at the time. Kopecký succeeds, but she falls ill and ends up in Dr. Kurt Lundwall's clinic in Salzburg. After recovering, she reunites with her husband, but she is not happy. As soon as she gets permission, she travels alone to Italy, where, after a 7-year break, she finally returns to acting. But instead of playing beautiful young girls, directors now cast her in roles of mothers and middle-aged women, such as in Federico Fellini's The Swindlers.
Buonasera.
Buonasera. Si diverte?
Sì, molto. Lei no?
Sì. Sente, stanno suonando il Mambo dei Sion.
Sì, è una bellissima canzone.
Permette.
Ma veramente, io sono in compagnia.
Permette. Giulia, senti.
Buonasera, signor Michele.
Oh, ciao. Perché non andiamo all'altro buffet? Qui c'è un sacco di gente.
Sì, scusi.
Largo!
Baarová manages to save enough money to buy an apartment in Rome, where Dr. Kurt Lundwall, the doctor who cared for her in 1949, visits her regularly. Despite being married, their relationship lasts for a long 23 years. She herself divorces in 1956, but she and Kopecký remain friends. Her former husband, now a successful film manager and founder of a German-Spanish co-production company, even arranges work for her in Spanish cinema. In addition to German, Italian, French and English, Baarová adds yet another language to her repertoire.
Deberíamos quedarnos en la próxima estación.
In 1958, the constant travel between Rome and Barcelona becomes too much for the 44-year-old actress. She officially ends her film career, moves to Salzburg to be with Lundwall, and only performs in the theatre. In 1969, she marries the recently widowed doctor, but just 3 years after their wedding, he passes away. The rest of her life is spent in Austria, in the seclusion of her apartment. When journalists later ask her in her twilight years what she considers the biggest mistake of her life, she replies that it was the missed opportunity to act in Hollywood. Had she accepted the offer, she says she might have avoided experiencing all that one goes through when falling from the absolute peak to the very bottom.